Hello, everyone, and welcome to another very special episode. She Scores Bangers is teaming up with the Northern Super League over the next few weeks to bring you exclusive interviews with players and others that are gearing up for their inaugural season, set to kick off on April 16th. The NSL, founded by former Canada International Diana Matheson, is Canada's first ever professional women's soccer league, with 6 clubs based in Halifax, Calgary, Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. You can catch the action on CBC, TSN, and other online streaming platforms. Today's guest is a dynamic midfielder who made waves at the 2023 Women's World Cup with the Philippines in their first World Cup appearance. She's also previously represented Canada at the youth levels. She joins the NSL after a successful spell with Western United in the A-League, having also spent time in Sweden and Japan beforehand. Hailing from BC, she'll be repping Calgary Wild. It's none other than Jackie Sawicki. Jackie, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Miriam. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Very good. How's the New Year's been for you?
Great. Yeah, just really spending time with immediate family. I've been away from Canada for the last couple years, so yeah, just kind of taking in all that quality time during the rest of this off season.
We're going to have you here for a while now because hopefully professional football is keeping you here at home. Jackie, even though you are set to be part of history in Alberta with the Calgary Wild now, you hail out of BC. Tell me a little bit about how soccer was introduced into your life very, very far out west.
Yeah, well, actually my first love was dance, so that was the first sport that I was a part of. But not too long after, a year later, my mother put me into soccer, and both of them just kind of stuck. So I did them both simultaneously competitively. I also participated in basketball and volleyball through the school programs, but soccer and dance were my main focus. Then, of course, at a certain age, if you're doing multiple things at a high level, you can't really commit all that time anymore. It just started to conflict. And I ended up going with soccer. Back then, the system was a lot different than it is now. I played my club seasons from fall to spring, and then in the summer would be what was the high performance at the time, which was provincial teams. So my first year I actually got cut from the provincial team, so that would have been U12. But then for the next 4 summers, I did provincial team after that. And of course played for my hometown club, Coquitlam Metro Ford. Um, then once U16 hit, would have been my last year doing club. And then for my last 2 years of high school, I became a full-time Vancouver Whitecaps player, and that essentially transitioned to be my club. And at the time, we played in the Women's League in Vancouver.
Well, I'm very glad you stuck to soccer because it feels like we would have been robbed from lots of good soccer fun, especially at the World Cup. But it all makes sense now because we see a lot of that dancing flair on the pitch and it all connects together. But you joined the Vancouver Whitecaps, and just shortly after, almost or kind of around that time, you represented Canada and went to the U20 Youth World Cup. What was it like being involved in the Canadian system, getting a taste of the international level almost?
At the time, there wasn't a lot going on leading up to the World Cup. So my U17, U18 years was with the Whitecaps, and that was the initial, I guess, start of the under 17 pool for my age group. So I only went to a couple camps within those 2 years. But then once I got to university, I played for the University of Victoria. Within my first couple years, I got called into the senior team first, before the U20s actually happened.
Hmm.
And then once I capped with the senior team, I was brought down to the U20s during their campaign and played in the CONCACAF qualifiers and then eventually made the roster for the Under 20 World Cup. Capping was one of the most amazing moments of my life. The stadium was sold out and it was in Kansas City. It was really difficult for me to be in the moment because I felt like I didn't know why I was there the whole time. I know, I'll be honest, like I know that there were a lot of players in that camp that weren't available due to their NWSL playoffs or their college commitments. So it was kind of the roster was a little bit different than normal. But yeah, it was super amazing. I got to be alongside legends of the game. And that obviously that experience just kind of helped me once I was with my own age group. And yeah, it was all such a great experience. And as it always does, just happened so fast.
It probably gave you kind of a bit of a boost with your university career. Again, and it's interesting because you have done it all at home. You stayed here in BC when you went to college, very similarly with the Whitecaps, the Canadians national team. It all very much stayed in Canada. What was your decision-making process like when you graduated and you're like, where am I supposed to go now if I want to play professional soccer and that's not available at home at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have the choice, I guess. Like you said, there were no opportunities at home, and a lot of players within my generation ended up, hanging up the boots, I'd say earlier than they should have. Yeah, I think I just knew deep down that I really wanted to play, and that's all I've ever really known how to do is to train and compete. So I just looked for things abroad. I've been fortunate to have a mentor that I could reach out to, someone that I met when I was about 16, who kind of opened my eyes to the experiences outside of Canada. And I think honestly, if it wasn't for her, I don't know if I would have really tried or even been aware of what was possible for me. So I initially had reached out to her and said, like, look, can you get me a trial or what's kind of my next step? And yeah, I initially was set up with some trials in Norway. That was my first venture outside of Canada. I was working full time at the time, and I just like booked a flight and just left and kind of dropped everything and
Mhm.
risked it. Nothing really worked out in Norway, but then I went to Denmark, and my plan was to stay, but at the time, I mean, the financial struggle for female athletes is still a struggle, but at the time it was really bad. Like I essentially was signing for $0 would have been the contract. So I stayed for a couple weeks and then I think I'm very much a realist. And I think the emotional side of me of wanting to be in the professional environment did not override the rational side of me, which was saying like, I don't think this is the right opportunity for you. And I think, maybe go home and seek something else or get different kind of help to really get my foot in there. So I ended up, so I was in Scandinavia for about a month and then I ended up flying back home. And then I researched for an agent to sign with, eventually signed with an agent, and then he ended up getting me the trial in Japan. Um, and then once I trialed, I ended up signing a more proper contract. And that was my first like real professional experience.
So it's quite a roller coaster to put pen to paper on a proper first professional contract.
Yeah, it did. And I think it really helped having the Canadian national team experience, but it's not that I was still within the Canadian pool. So I think that also hindered the pen to paper moment.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think just having that little stint in my resume did really like help me a lot.
Hmm. And how did you enjoy Japan? Kind of going into a new culture, a new country, different language. That must have been a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I think I expected more people to be able to speak English, but
Mm.
because I was in a place called Hano, which is about an hour outside of Tokyo, it really wasn't common to speak English fluently. So language was definitely a challenge. I had one American teammate and we basically were attached to the hip that whole season. They did hire some translators for us because we had about a 30-minute to 1 hour meeting before every training session. So that was helpful, of course. Yeah, language was definitely tough. Style of play was so technical as expected. And yeah, it was just such a big jump from what I was doing, which was not a lot at the time. Yeah, a challenging experience, but I think was a good one to be my first one because it really showed me what the environment was going to be like.
And it set you up to go abroad again to Scandinavia, to Sweden, and spend a little bit more time there, just over a month maybe. And
Yeah,
then,
so I was in Japan for 6 months,
yeah.
and then when I transferred to Sweden, I actually was there for 2 years. So I that was, yeah, again, a
Mhm.
completely different experience from a cultural standpoint, from the footballing standpoint. I would say overall, I probably enjoyed that kind of lifestyle and my football time more when I was in Sweden. But I mean, naturally, I wasn't getting a lot of minutes in Japan. So that was, again, a challenge that I was trying to navigate. Like, how do I be the best teammate off the bench? And how do I keep working hard and developing myself as a professional when I'm not getting a lot of game time?
Mhm.
And when I transitioned to Sweden, I was getting a lot of game time. So, yeah, very different. Still a lot of highly technical players, but I think they had a little bit more of a direct mindset when it came to attacking. I've always considered myself a little bit more technical.
Mhm.
So I think I just, used that to kind of mold in with the team. I
Mhm.
also was playing a little bit out of position. I played as a winger my first season,
Yeah.
which I don't think anyone would ever think to put me there now. Um, so that was, I mean, it's not that I didn't have experience playing winger prior to, but it was essentially going to be my first professional season as a winger. So that was different for me. And then my second season, then I kind of went back into the center of the park. So
That's where you enjoyed in the midfield and kind of the central positions. I know you played striker in the youth stages, so you're a little bit more of an attacking minded player, but have also had to do some defending. Like I feel like Jackie has really been all over the the field. Maybe not
you're
in
right.
between the
Jackie.
posts.
Jackie has been all over. I definitely in my youth started off as a striker. I played a lot of winger in my youth as well, and then a little bit in that like attacking central mid role, but not as much. Um, I can't really pinpoint exactly when all of that shifted, but definitely started off more attacking minded. Yeah, now I've played as a six multiple times now. Played as a six at the World Cup, so my mindset has definitely shifted. And yeah, I'd say I've got a little bit of both in me, but it really just depends on the coach and the team. And I always obviously just whatever the game plan is for me and what my individual role is, I'll obviously perform that to the best of my ability on the day.
Mhm. Just after Sweden, which you took a little bit of a break from football, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But you were in Australia most recently in the A League. Um, Again, another league, very different, a different continent. You've really diversified the experience. But what do you bring from the A League, a league that is booming after the World Cup that has gotten a lot of attention since 2023 now?
Yeah, given the experiences and how different all of it was from both a football standpoint and a cultural standpoint, um, I think something that the Wild is really trying to focus on is building a community around the female sport and within Calgary. So I think not just from my individual experiences, but from all the players across all the clubs, I think everyone's individual backgrounds and journeys are really going to be the, driving force to connect the sport to community. So I think I definitely saw that kind of boom after the World Cup within Australia. Um, and I think, yeah, having this league now and then having us to actually be there and physically play is really going to be that key part.
And you're going to be part of history of the first ever bit of professional footy in Canada. How does that make you feel to know that you are part of this big inaugural season, part of the history that the Wild is building together?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I've said this in a couple of interviews now. Genuinely never thought that I would actually be playing within the white lines when this moment came. I always thought I'd be watching it from the stands. And I think anytime you're a part of history, you're essentially contributing to something that's much bigger than yourself. So, yeah, with all of that being said, I just think it's so meaningful that all of us are going to be able to witness a key moment in transforming our system, essentially. And I just hope that the generations before me know that they were also such a huge part of this. So, yeah, I think everyone's probably in the same boat, knowing that this means everything to all of us. And I'm just so excited for it to all begin.
Certainly very exciting to know that going into 2025, this is the year that Canada's going to have professional soccer. What was your reaction when you first heard the interest from Calgary Wild?
Yeah, I was pretty excited. I also was contracted.
Mhm.
And Alex did know that. We just had when we initially spoke is very informal, just kind of seeing what my current situation was and what they were looking to build and just kind of building that initial relationship. So when she reached out again and it was a little bit more forward with, I guess, what they would offer. I knew that this was always something that I wanted to come back to Canada and be a part of this. So, regardless of my current situation, yeah, I just kind of went with it. And this is kind of how I've always played out my career is just going with the flow and taking opportunities as they come. So, when she reached out again with some real concrete interest, I just kind of grabbed it with both hands and ran with it.
I love it because I think it's interesting that we need to bring Canadian talent back home, but also kind of keep it diverse. And when I look at the NSL rosters across all teams, it is very diverse. And I think the individuals are representing a lot of minorities, a lot of different communities, and you're one of that. You represent the Philippines national team at the international level. We just touched on the fact that you represented them at the 2023 Women's World Cup, had a brilliant role in it too. How did that story come together? Because if I'm not mistaken, you're eligible to represent Canada, Poland through your dad, as well as the Philippines. So you had a few options on the table, it feels like.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky, I guess, to to be able to represent three countries or at least be eligible. To be honest, I don't know what it was that made them want to reach out to me because, like you said, I did take time off and it wasn't just a few months time off. I took 2 years off. So it was a very long time. And during that time, I just was dealing with some chronic issues in my body. So was trying to heal that. And then I, well, COVID happened during that time too. And I didn't really think about seeking opportunities to play professionally again. And opportunities weren't exactly coming to me either because I wasn't playing or trying to.
Mhm.
Um, I was working full time. I just kind of was living a normal, typical life. So when they reached out to me, I was very confused, to be honest. And I was very transparent with my situation. I said, I don't play professionally anymore. And given the fact that I knew what an international level required, I was like, I am not fit. I don't think I'm what you're looking for. I don't know if you're mistaken with what my situation is, but this is what it is. And basically, if I came in, don't expect a lot from me kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, but they kind of insisted that I just come in and check it out. And I was living with my partner at the time and kind of said, what do you think? And he was like, why wouldn't you go? So we can thank him for the final push. I was getting touches on the ball. I wasn't completely off. After 2 years, I just joined a local club called Gorge. It's on Vancouver Island and was playing with former college teammates and just kind of having fun. So it was only a couple times a week, and the level, of course, was far from professional. So in between those football days, I just started conditioning myself and doing the things that I knew I needed to do to at least be able to handle the load of a training camp. I was extremely nervous, but my first camp was in Australia, funny enough. right after that camp, there was actually a campaign called Southeast Asian Games.
Hmm.
So there was opportunity to go straight into a tournament with that team. Yeah, I did that. After that, everything just kind of happened so fast. My life completely changed because after that camp, it really did it gave me strong motivation to get back into the game. And I was like this opportunity for me to go to a World Cup is happening right now. I've got about a year and a half from this moment to make the roster. So if I really want to do this, I gotta get back into the professional club environment. And that's when the A-League opportunity happened. And then from there on out, I kept getting called up with the Philippines. So drastic change came out of nothing. But like I said, I took the opportunity as it came. And I think within those 2 years off, I always knew that I had more to get to the game. Um, but I just kind of let it happen naturally. And eventually it did and worked out in my favor. And yeah, I'm just so grateful.
Yeah, that's quite actually an inspirational story of being away from the game and being not too receptive to the idea of going in and taking the chance. And it's almost like it's only been up from there, which is really, really exciting. What are some pieces of knowledge you want to share with new NSL fans that are just kind of getting into it, Calgary Wild fans? What's your message to them?
And I said this in a recent interview as well. There are just so many females within my generation that left the game at an early age, and never found the opportunities to keep participating. And I know that a lot of women, wanted a different lifestyle and maybe didn't necessarily want to be a professional athlete, but for Canada to take this long to kind of really give us what we needed at the end of our pathway is like the magnitude of it. I don't think people realize how huge this is in soccer history in this country, that I just really hope fans and the community, not just in Calgary, but across Canada, is going to continue to support us and come to the games and just be a part of this moment with us because we're all doing it together. And yeah, I know I'm not the only one that's super excited about this. We're all just dying to get out there and be a part of it and just to watch it continuously progress. So yeah, just be a part of it with us, and I'm just excited to be in the moment.
It's going to be exciting to be part of history. You've already been part of history with many, many things like we just mentioned. I want to ask you a few questions about your favorite memories. So,
Okay.
I'd love to hear what would be your favorite memory with the Philippines national team.
Oh, well, there are a lot. We just had such an incredible like year to 2 years together leading up to that moment. I think if I had to pick one, um, I think it would actually, I know people would be like, I can't believe that's your favorite moment, but so our final game, everyone knows we got slapped 6-0 by Norway, but before the game happened, you of course sing the national anthem. And because that was our last group stage game and we were coming off the win against New Zealand that hosted, it's just crazy to see how many Philippine communities there are across the world. And that's what I think makes the Philippines so unique is how many communities they create everywhere outside of the Philippines. We had so many fans at that game. There was about 30,000 in that stadium. And when we sang the national anthem, it just echoed. And yeah, it just was such an emotional feeling to like really feel the impact that we had on the community. And like I was saying before, like it's just so much bigger than the sport and the game. You're representing something that's so much bigger than you. And yeah, that would have been probably the biggest moment in terms of like feeling that connection with the country, and having them in New Zealand with us, and just feeling the support everywhere. It was, yeah, that was truly incredible.
I mean, you just mentioning that, I feel like I'm getting like shivers down my spine. I don't
I
know.
know every time I talk about it, I start to get a little teary-eyed, and I'm like, "Don't cry, don't cry."
Because it is a big moment, and I think too for a nation that has tried a lot when it came to women's soccer and has there's been a lot of barriers for the players in that nation. It was a huge moment, I think, just to watch. I was about to ask you what's your favorite moment of the World Cup, but I'm not sure if we can top this one.
I
Can
mean,
we?
it was great to win a game as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
for sure. There was lots. I think every game for me, there was a different moment that I just was like taking it all in. Like you really do feel that out of body experience in moments when you're playing at an international level, and it's just not to be taken for granted at all. I
Mhm.
think, yeah, the first game, we knew that we weren't just the first women's team, we were the first Philippine women's team and sorry, the first Philippines team for both men and women to get to that point. So the first time the anthem was going to be sang, the first starting lineup, like the first moments, we were all going to be a part of. And then the second game, we were able to win a match within, as debutantes. We scored our first goal. Um, yeah, just really incredible. I think really hard to repeat as well. Like, of course, we're focusing on how do we get to another World Cup because it's not easy. The teams that have been able to do it every 4 years consistently, like these teams have really built the foundation and the pathway and really, developed into footballing countries, and we're still so, so far from that. So yeah, you just don't know if you're going to be able to experience something like that again, which is why you really got to be in the moment once you're in it.
You've been involved in so much history, Jackie. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I cannot wait to see you kick it with the Calgary Wild. Also for more history this upcoming April. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It was really nice to chat.